What's up, everybody? Welcome to podcast now. I'm Alex. In this video, I want to talk about fair game money symbol, or as it's now called, fair games. There was a Bloomberg report on this game. The head of the studio obviously left. We'll talk about all that in a second, but it's not a great story, but at the same time, I find myself actively almost rooting for it to happen. And look, let me make it just very clear in the beginning of this video. I try to not actively root for like anything to massively fail. And I think I've done a good job at that. However, let me also be fair and real. When it comes to this approach from PlayStation over the last 5-6 years, it has been nothing short of the worst possible mistakes you could ever make. I don't care if you want to blame Jim Ryan. I don't care who you blame. It has been a series of just everything that could possibly go wrong. Besides Helldivers, everything has gone wrong in spectacular fashion. You've had studios close. You've had games get shut down. You've had games being freaking pulled off the store. I'm looking at Concord for that. It's unreal. It's unreal, the approach that's happened here. So when we hear about this game losing the person who founded the studio and not sounding like it's all that good and people inside the studio are worried about it, I don't want anybody to lose their jobs. I don't want anybody to be homeless, have no roof, food, all that jazz, okay? All that stuff very much stands. But I also want lessons to be learned, and I don't understand how this happened. I don't know why PlayStation bought Haven in the first place, much like I don't understand a couple different things that PlayStation has done in recent memory. I just don't get it. And I feel like if you need all of these things to fail in order to really drive the point home that we don't want this, then that's, I guess, what's going to end up happening. So, okay, that's enough venting. Let's go over the actual story here. So, you have PlayStation executive Jade Raymond leaves studio she founded. And obviously, the long and short of it, she founded the studio of Haven. They were bought by PlayStation, shortly after. Fairgames was announced in 2023. By the way, they call it Fairgames, just, ES. And somebody pressed Schreier on that, and he said, no, actually, he did that on purpose. It's no longer fair game money symbol. Now it's just fair games. So she left for unknown reasons. They don't know why, but it came several weeks after an external test of their game. And they say developers at Haven were concerned about how the game was received and its progress, said the people who were asked not to be identified, yada, yada, yada. It was originally slated for release in fall of 25, but it had been delayed till next spring. That's another, I guess, rumor. The people that work at the studio, were telling him this. Let me just throw out this real quick piece before we start to analyze it. A little while ago, with the GTA 6 stuff, so I guess we're talking about a week ago, right? When that happened, Jason Schreier had said, this really sucks for some games that pushed themselves because they needed to be pushed, right? They needed to be delayed. And they just so happen now to release around the same time as GTA. And he said there was one big multiplayer game that he was talking about several games, but there was one in particular that I think maybe the people were talking to him or whatever the case might be. Like him throwing that into this article, I actually think it's this game. I don't think you should call this a big multiplayer game. I think it's probably because of Haven, and it's because of her, it's because of PlayStation. That's probably why you would call it big, but I don't think it's ultimately going to be big. But I just to throw that in there to kind of add onto like this game probably going to be a disaster anyway, but to add to that, this is probably that game he was talking about that, they were not going to come out when GTA was coming out. They thought GTA would be the fall. They delayed themselves. They didn't necessarily delay themselves because of GTA. They did it for polish and other things. But now, coincidentally, they have delayed themselves to when GTA comes out. So they're screwed. So, okay, all right, whatever. You take that and you could say, well, maybe that's true, maybe it's not. As for this, look, again, no ill will to these people. Ultimately, I don't care too much. I care to make a video, and I'm going to move on with my life. This Jade Raymond, I didn't know much about her. I knew a little bit about, the history, but I never, really, looked her up or, even Wikipedia searched her. If you look into her, I don't know. I don't know about this woman. So this is a person that, and it's become a meme. It's become something that people have just laughed at. Specifically, I would say today. Again, I mean, whatever. She is who she is. If she caused a lot of these things, maybe she did, maybe she didn't. But this is a person who starts studios, stays for a couple years, and leaves. That is her MO. She was behind things like Assassin's Creed 2 is kind of where it popped off. I think she worked on Watch Dogs, but it's always like an executive role. She's not, I don't think she's like in the weeds, like doing the nitty gritty, like everyday stuff. She's in like managerial, like executive kind of things. And, she's been around. She was around with Ubisoft and again, managed some of those late 2000, early 2010 things. And then after that, she started Motive. I actually completely either forgot or didn't know that in the first place. Motive, Star Wars Squadrons, eventually does Dead Space, doing Iron Man. She founded that studio, and then she left a couple of years in. She didn't do any. Like, I don't know if she pitched, like, Squadrons itself, but she left before that game, I believe, even released, and I don't think she's credited. So it's like she makes that studio. So, like, maybe she's good at like starting things, and then for whatever reason she just bails. She's like, all right, I'm out. She also joined Google with Stadia, and I think she lasted there like a year and a half. Nothing happened there, as we know what happened just in general with Google Stadia. But the reason I keep bringing this up is like this is a common thing. Like she was behind Battlefront 2 a little. She was with EA for a little bit, and like I guess credited for Battlefront, again, like a managerial type thing. I don't really know what that means, just to be honest with you. I don't care too much, but I don't know like if that's like a glowing resume. But, starting these things, joining these things at very high roles. This is not like entry-level stuff. She's joining in some of the highest freaking positions possible. She founds, I don't know if I'm using this, by the way, in like the correct tense, but, she creates Haven. And that's cool, I guess. She's done that, once or twice before. They're bought by PlayStation like almost immediately. So something must have been like, interesting about it. You know what I mean? Where it's like, okay, like maybe it's her, maybe it's whatever her vision for what the game will be. And then she bails. She bails before this game comes out. And, based off that very first freaking paragraph by Schreier, she bails a couple of weeks after a playtest that people in the studio said, oh, I don't know about this. Like, okay, sounds like you're abandoning ship. We've heard this somewhat before. Think about Rocksteady. Think about their co-founders there. That I feel like they need to answer some questions, by the way, before I get totally invested in their next game. They freaking bailed before Suicide Squad. They bailed a year before Suicide Squad. And then we found out later they were a huge cause of why Suicide Squad was the way that it was. And it's like, you almost forget. You almost don't like want to, nobody questions them. Nobody brings it up. But you have to think, okay, well, how much are these people behind some of the failures of these things and they just get to bail early and pretend like it never happened? Jim Ryan honestly feels like that. Retired, forced out. I don't really, again, know nor care what really happened to him. But remember when he left was kind of right before all of these things started failing. And it's like, I wonder if that was like timing because his legacy, his legacy will always be remembered as something now. And I think people do have memories. They can remember certain things, but maybe they were trying to get out ahead of it and be like, hey, your legacy now is this. If you stay for 2 more years and you watch as 10 of your 12 live service games suck or don't even release, that's going to damage the reputation. It could be the same thing here. At the end of the day, let me just circle back to the very beginning. I don't have a good feeling about this game at all. Like, that's why I'm being maybe a little bit more like antagonistic. This game, we saw a CG trailer, but it just continues to look like one of the most like we've seen it 5,000 other times. And we've seen this before. Concord gave off very familiar vibes. Honestly, Marathon, I think, is scaring people a little bit too. Just this samey feel and trying to break into this genre that's been done 10,000 times and you're 5 years too late. When these things started, yeah, if they released that same year, you probably stand a chance and maybe people can tolerate it being average. You're not going to get away with that now. And you shouldn't. If this game comes out and it's I don't think people will put up with that in the same way of Concord, I don't think is a bad game. I think it was a very game, a game that I would not buy and ultimately didn't buy and all that jazz. And that obviously suffered a lot of consequences from the entire world. That's the same kind of vibe. I don't care what type of game, by the way. It doesn't really matter, from that perspective. This just feels like a game that's breaking in 5 years too late. And that's something we've already said. And like even the name of it, like the money symbol being a part of it and now not. Just like that part alone is something. But then you hear all of this stuff that, okay, like when a founder leaves, right, when they bail before the game comes out, you should kind of look at it. I feel like that's something that should like set off some sort of signal where it's like, okay, maybe be a little skeptical. And then you hear like, okay, well, even like the play tests maybe weren't all that good. So I don't know. I am excited, I guess, to get closer because I just want whatever is going to happen to happen. You know what I mean? Let's not wait on it. Let's if it's going to fail, it's going to fail. If it's good, it's good. I don't want to diminish that, and I guess I'll end it there. If it's great, I'll say it. Like, I'll eat my own words and what I don't really care. Like, I'll congratulate it for being a good game. I just feel that, so much is stacked against it, though. I'm not feeling very confident on it, but we'll see how it goes. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.